do I tell my younger self as far as writing stuff? Because a lot of this stuff is organic. You learn it as you go.
It's strange. It's nothing I ever expected.
I want to tell my stories by eliciting emotion in my audience.
So it's an organic process. They sort of layer on top of each other. Each one makes the next layer more obvious to me.
This whole thing could not have gone any smoother.
I usually say squat only in groups of 3. I like to batch them, like squat, squat, squat.
Look, guys, this one's not going to be like normal. It's just not.
Welcome to the Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the mellifluous Kalene Williams.
That's a big difference. It's like, are you talking or are you doing? What's happening here?
We still have all the pets that think, oh, it's time to eat. It doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m.
My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium.
I had absolutely no idea if that was going to work or not. Look, and we started it off grandly by not changing the overlay. There we go. Now it's fine. Now it's working.
Kapow.
Okay, shake it off. I'm nervous. I'm nervous. We haven't done one of these in so long. I have absolutely no idea what to do.
I know. I'm sitting here. I'm like, I don't know if I should be here. It's been so damn long. It's weird. Super weird.
Woo!
Josh says, I'll be there in 25 minutes to send you the link. And I'm like, I don't even know if my camera will work. I have a few more seconds for a sound check.
I have to say, though, when the intro started, I got some goosebumps.
Oh,
I was like, oh, bringing it back, coming back into the zone. Welcome, everybody, to the first Keystroke show of the year and the first Keystroke show in, like, I don't know, 6 months. It's been a while.
Almost a year for me. Well, I know it's been before June, but probably before that quite a bit because I was pretty inconsistent there.
I mean, it's been a long time. I'm surprised that any of this still works. And look, we've got a whole bunch of people in the live chat already. Even after 6 months of not doing a show, you guys are the true heroes of today. Let's see who's.
That shows that we have built the community that we've always wanted. Because even though we were gone for 6 months, people are still here. They want to hang out and chat. So
100%.
That all the love.
One thing we haven't done in 6 months is offer up the Keystroke Medium golf clap of appreciation of the first comment, and that goes to Lauren Moore, who beat out Rick Partlow. He was close. I think there for a while, Rick had like a permanent plaque on his wall for being the first comment. And today he's the second. So, Rick, you need to up your game. Who else is in here? Let's see. Lauren is watching. What's up, Lauren? Trucker Charlie's on the road. I know that for a fact. Bart of Today. What's up, buddy? William Tyler Davis in the house. And Leo Vaccaro. Look at that. Look at that. What's up, Leo? How you doing, buddy? Yeah, man. I
doing some rain and flooding. I saw some other posts about that. It must be raining elsewhere.
It's dry as a bone here. Fortunately, it's not freezing. I had a window crack, and that's never fun.
Hank Garner in the house. Look at that.
Hank Garner? That's insane. Insane. What's up, Hank? Some cool stuff coming from Hank's corner. Maybe we'll touch on later. I think this show is probably going to be kind of an extended update for all of us as we kind of hop back into doing these on a regular basis. I have missed sitting behind the microphone and talking to all of you, and I know Lauren and Kalene has as well. Scott, though, has the biggest news of everyone on the program, possibly in the entire internets.
Made my move. I can go full-time complaining about AI generators. Man, I was tuned up this morning about people and their AI story generators.
Yeah, well,
Huge, man.
Why?
it's a thing. It's a thing.
Why?
Let's go ahead and jump into this. Let's talk about stuff that's been going on. We have all been grinding it out over the last 6 months. Part of the absence I blame on Scott. Part of the absence I blame on just trying to get a whole metric crap ton of work done. I have last couple of years have just been struggling. I freely admit that been struggling and trying to pound out the words. Last year was a really big rebuilding year for me, especially the back half of 2022. And now I'm back to where I want to be production wise. I'm back to where I want to be, getting the words pounded every day. I managed to get 2 full books written, plus some last year, plus some other projects I was working on. And now I have 2 in the can. Tranquility 3 is done. The edits are done. It's off to Audible Studios for the audio narration. I have absolutely no idea when the audiobook's going to come out. Got some news on the ebook, the readable versions of those to talk about maybe on a different show. But Tranquility's wrapped up. My new series, Weaponized. The first book is done. I'm editing it now, and I'm about 45,000 words into book 2. And we're planning on launching those this year. But we're not going to launch the first one until book 3 is done. And then hopefully we'll have a situation where I'll be publishing all 3 of those books right in a row, along with the Tranquility books. And hopefully I'll have something else in the can before that comes along.
I love that movie terminology.
Yeah.
In the can. That's not what I thought initially. But no.
Yeah. Right. No, that's a completely different show. Completely different. Yeah. So let's see. Got a whole bunch of writing done. I joined the Aethon team. I think back around when we stopped doing these shows.
Corner or something, or maybe a fox.
It's well, funny story about that. It was supposed to be a rat, and it turned out to be a dog.
That's
and,
true. What are you talking about?
So yeah, I joined the Aethon team back in August, I think, and I did a lot of work for them for an app project called Yonder, and that took up the majority of my time over August and September and October, basically formatting books for this pay for chapter reading app that the people that own Wattpad, I can't remember their parent company name, but they started this app and came to Aethon for a whole bunch of content. And so my job was to kind of chop all that stuff up. It was a huge pain in the ass.
It's probably every manuscript's probably formatted differently with different headings by different authors and different things.
Shut up. My dog's barking. Yeah, so no, the formatting was actually not the biggest problem. The biggest problem was because it's a read per chapter app, you had to break all of the chapters out of the manuscript, and all of those chapters had to be EPUBs, and they all had to have the right metadata and file formatting and all that stuff. So if you had a book that was 53 chapters, you'd have 53 EPUB files that I needed to generate through Vellum. And so it was the manuscript formatting, it was the stripping out the chapters and all that stuff. That took a lot of time, and it took me a few months to really nail down a really good cycle of operations, if you will, to get that finished up. And I do a lot of the formatting now, a lot of the ebook formatting for Aethon. Most of it comes across my desk. I've got a couple I got to work on this week. I've done several Rick books, but then all of Jeff Haskell's books and almost everything that we put out in the back half of 2022. I had a hand in formatting, and I do a lot of the paperback covers. Steve handles the art side of it, and then I put everything together. So it was a nice little change of pace. I get to do work, my writing, and then in the afternoons I can do some stay-at-home work, and it gives me a little bit more of a challenge, a different challenge, rather than just yeah. I had a hand in Rick. Wait, that's a different show. So
more can reference.
yeah, Rick was in the can. So yeah, 2022 was a crazy year. It was a crazy year, and I missed being on this show. I missed coming on here every week and talking to everybody. But I don't mean to monopolize the time. So Scott, you had a big thing that happened. I mean, today is a big day for you, man.
Kick it back for here. I have a prop. I have 2 props.
Oh, 2 props. I love props.
I can do it without killing myself. So the first one, see how this shows up.
25 years, 11 months of. I'm gonna make that big. Hold on. Look at that.
Gorgeous.
Very nice. Yes. Well, now your volume got screwy. I think you bumped your gain up. Nope. There you go. It was just it went too low.
Okay. If I get too close to it, so
now you're fine.
Moving around the mic.
Yeah.
Nope. Yep. Maybe. I need like
you're good now.
We need like a sound check person that like yells at us in the chat.
Yeah. Loud, soft, loud, soft.
This is the other one.
Distinguished service citation.
And that's just like, hey, look, this guy showed up for 26 years, but it looks fancy.
Yeah, it does look fancy.
I have some other awards. I've never been people that know me at work. I never was an awards guy. I got some awards, but I also got put in for awards that I didn't get them, or actually felt I did something, and so I decided they're kind of meaningless. So, like we went to one of the last things I did, ironically enough, or maybe appropriately enough, one of the last things I did the day before my last day in the police department, I went to a police recruit graduation, and I'd never been to one since my own in 26 years. So I thought that was interesting. But when I get there, I'm with all the command staff, but then they have like fancier jackets and all this stuff, and everybody there has like 6 rows that look like what's Richard Fox's thing. He's always looked like a South American.
Got a salad bar.
Yeah, like a South American dictator there with their uniforms. and you have to, people in the military probably know this, but you have to have like special plates, and they got to be lined up, and it's a big process. And since I kind of had some runs where I got awards that I did nothing for, and I didn't get awards that I did do something for, like almost died. And so I'm like, I just not into them. So I showed up and I had my badge, my SWAT pin, my shooting badge, and my name tag. I think my serving sense pin's required. And that's all I had in my whole uniform. That's just what I did things. And they're all looking at me like, don't you want to put all your pins and badges? And no, I don't.
Yeah.
So, but that was interesting. Okay, let's check my volume.
I think if you bring the mic just a little closer, it'll fix a lot of the problems.
I have a gain knob. Problem is, I like to keep it a certain distance, and I'm already way closer than I do. So
that's really good right there.
Right there. Okay, don't move at all. Don't.
Yeah. Freeze.
It's like that movie, what's that one about the aliens? You have to be quiet. Quiet game.
Ooh, A Quiet Place.
Quiet Place. I've been meaning to watch it, but it's really touching our house because my wife won't watch stressful shows, but she kind of says maybe she'll watch that one. So maybe I'll get it passed off now that I have some time.
If you make it through the first 5 minutes, then she'll watch it.
Yeah. Well, good.
I think we watched that one. Willow's really into horror and thriller types now. So I've seen so many, they're all blurring together.
I bet. So that's my big news. I did retire. I'm a completely full-time writer now. I think that I'm prepared for it, but it's still a little bit sketchy when you make that leap. And you're like, now, like I told Josh, asked me how I was doing this morning, and I said, I'm writing like it's my job. Because it's just real. My pension won't pay the bills by itself. I have to have the writing income, and but that's all right because I have a lot of opportunities, and we got this great writers community, and we're ready to get into it. Make 2023 the best year ever.
Well, and it's not like you weren't writing, right?
No,
like you smashed out a buttload of words last year.
Well, in the first couple of days, I don't know if I'll maintain that, but yesterday I did 7,600 words, and today I've already done 4,900.
Yeah.
I'm not done. So, and that's mostly because I'm behind on a couple of projects. I'm trying to get caught up and kind of clear the plate, and then I can get into like a more reasonable, healthy amount of writing.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
Not killing yourself with the words every day.
Yeah. It's been pretty easy so far. I don't set an alarm. I just get up. Of course, my body still gets me up at like 4:30, but not by an alarm.
My dog's attacking me. So if you see me like swiping at things on the floor, this mangy rat is.
You see you dragged out of the chair.
I am doing a very important podcast.
But bodily, that's a good place to be, where you can just naturally get yourself up instead of hearing that alarm, groaning, and then you snooze it 10 times, forget that it only has 3, sleep until 9, and then you lost your whole morning.
Well, and it's annoying for the whole family because I'm always like, it's time to go to bed. I'm like, they're like, it's not even 8 o'clock. I'm like, it's 7:55. It's 8 o'clock. I'm like, nobody wants to go to bed that early.
Yeah.
Around here. So maybe I'll get to kind of some sort of normalcy. Yeah. And so far, I'm very excited.
Well, what about you, Kalene? What have you been up to this year? Or last year?
Well, 2022 was also another really busy one for me. At the end of 2020, because I've still been playing catch up with that, I lost my day job because it closed down due to all the COVID closures and stuff. The owner just couldn't keep up. So rather than looking for another day job, I decided to jump headfirst into editing full time. So 2021 was kind of like working out the kinks, and 2022 was like full throttle. I did in total 6,072,089 words of editing.
That's amazing.
And that's just editing. That's not including like the so I did some like developmental beta reads and stuff too, so it could be higher, but I only count super edit words anyway. So that's a lot. I counted it all up and I'm like, God, no wonder I'm so tired.
Yep.
So hopefully, and a lot of that's through Aethon. I've really gone all in on them through last year. I'm almost to 50 books through them, so I'm starting to see a lot of the ones that I've edited, starting to get published because they're getting to their 3rd book and whatnot. And a couple of them, they've gotten awards, and my little author babies are doing so good. I'm so proud.
It's always funny when I scroll through the folder to find the next format project, and it's book 1 edited by Kalene, book 2 edited by Kalene, and I'm like, every single one I go down through the list, edited by Kalene, edited by Kalene.
Yeah, I do a lot. Rhett yells at me. He's like, "Why don't you take a break?" I'm like, "Rhett, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Send me another manuscript."
Got hours left in my day.
Right?
Rhett never tells me to take a break. That's crap. I'm going to file a complaint with the HR director right after this meeting.
He keeps me hidden in the editorial dungeon, so I don't know. Throws me scraps. No. But also hoping to get Marine's Luck and Ura. That's been on the shelf for like 3 years. Get that finished up with Bill Frisbee, who's doing amazing with his new series launch with Kennedy. So hopefully we can get that out for the readers this year. That's the plan anyway.
Yeah, he's been pumping those books out. Bill has, I think he's like on 4 or 5 or something like that of that series. Maybe I'm wrong, but
published, yeah. Written, he's like number 8.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
So that's me. I edit all day. I have to be reminded to eat and to sleep, and then rinse and repeat.
I don't ever have that problem. I just I eat too much and then I sleep. And one of the things Scott and I were talking about the other day when we were talking about making an adjustment to not having to go to work, quote unquote, where you're not put in an 8 to 5, as whether like the other day I woke up at 4. My dog was having some kind of stomach problems for a couple of days, and she had to go outside all the time. And so overnight she'd be okay, and then a couple hours would go by and she would bark and I'd have to get out of bed and take her out of bed. Well, I woke up at like 4 to take her out. And when I had a normal job, I would look at the clock and go, holy crap, I've got to be up in 2 hours to go to work for a 10-hour day. And then your day's just ruined. But I was up and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go downstairs and go to work. And came downstairs, wrote 2,000 words, got the kids off to school, and then I took a nap. And it's nice to have that flexibility to be able to, well, you can stay up till midnight working. That's okay. The next morning, you don't have to get up like really early or whatever to go. And it was a big change. And I know a lot of people don't have that luxury. I know a lot of people are still grinding it out on the day-to-days, but it is that's one of the lesser known like perks of kind of working for yourself, and not just writing, but just like working from home and like Kalene editing and all that stuff is
I'm a little more relaxed about stuff because I can be pretty neurotic,
yeah,
tense when I was trying to get stuff done, but now I'm like, oh, I'll get it done.
Yeah,
I can sleep in or get up late or whatever. So
7,600 words though in a day, man, that's nuts.
It wasn't hard. Some of it was hard because I'm trying to wrap up a book that is somewhat challenging. But when I get into my sprints, I've been doing probably 900 or 1,000 words in a 30-minute sprint. And then I'll take kind of, it feels like a long break, like I'm screwing off. I'll come back. But at the end of the day, I was like amazed at the word count. So I did like 4,000 on my primary project, like 2 900-word sprints on my secondary project, and 2 800 or 900-word sprints on my third project. And that was 7,600.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's a lot.
I want to get back into writing so bad, but I keep telling myself I got to pay bills, and then I put it off and edit another manuscript.
Yeah.
Important.
Well, paying bills is it's pretty important. Like eating, that's kind of that's a thing.
Kid needs clothes. She won't stop growing. I guess.
One of the things that I did last year that I've never done before, and I'm going to do it again this year, is I read a book a week last year. That was my goal. Now, actually, a couple of those weeks I didn't read a book, but by the end of the year, I think I had 55 total books read for 2022. And I did it. First of all, I love reading. I think that's why I am a writer. But second of all, I really wanted to grow my my writing toolbox, and
you just get an AI thing to read them for you.
This is true. Yeah, but then you're listening to the robot read like this.
Well, and I don't even mean listen. I was mostly just a jab at.
Yeah, no, I get it.
They do everything meaningful in our lives for us.
I read a whole bunch of different books. I read a whole bunch of different genres. 2 of the series that I read last year did a lot for me from a writer standpoint of growing. And Scott, we had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago.
Like Rachel's comment while you're talking on that.
That's almost as many books as Rick wrote. That's true. I think Rick wrote about like 75 books last year.
Yeah, something like
all
that.
the books.
All the books. Well, and you mentioned editing.
It's his own genre at this point.
Right. You mentioned editing 6 million words. I think I managed just over 500,000 words written last year. Scott did what, like 750,000, 800,000 or something?
830, 840,000 words last year, which was my best year for a long time.
So yeah, I read a whole bunch of books. 2 of the series that I read that I wholeheartedly would encourage anyone to read, whether or not you're right in the genre or not, are the Gray Man series by Mark Greaney and the Sun Eater series by Christopher Ruocchio. We're gonna have Christopher Ruocchio on the show this month. I'm not exactly sure what date, but we are going to have him on this month to talk about those books because they are simply phenomenal.
They're amazing.
But the reason he says I only manage 9, so, okay, whatever. The reason I recommend reading those books, because for me it did 2 things. One, the Gray Man series really fed my how I write. Like how I write action sequences, how I write dialogues, even down to the dialogue tags. It really fed that mechanical way of writing, and I really dug into those books. They're extremely well written, and I write
the first Gray Man book.
Yeah, well, skip.
I
yes.
struggled with that one, but
yeah,
the second
two
one-
through 9, fantastic. But it really fed the mechanical aspect of writing for me, like that style. It fed my style of writing very well, and the Sun Eater series fed my content. And what I mean by that is, the Sun Eater series is a sweeping space opera, and the main character is a military commander, but the series itself is not really mil sci-fi. It is really deep space opera, written as an epic fantasy, and the content, the sci-fi content of his books is really imaginative, really smart, and that fed a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do with the Weaponized series, just through the different aliens that he comes in contact with, the different technologies that he has in his books. There's a really good collection of that kind of content in the series, and I absolutely loved it. And that was interesting for me when I came to that realization, because when I started the challenge, I was just challenging myself to read a book a week because I wanted to read more. But then when I started thinking about like what it was actually doing for me as a writer, then I started reading a little bit more focused and really paying attention to, not trying to read it and from a writer's perspective of oh, I would have written this differently had I wrote it, which happened from time to time, but really like taking in the different material that's in the book and using that to fill my writer's tool chest, rather than to just be entertained or think, I would have written this differently.
I've gone down those roads, and one of the things that I'm trying to do now is just read books that are really good. There's an argument that you learn by reading the bad books, but at this point I just don't have time. And frankly, I want something that recharges my battery and gets me inspired and makes me, love writing and stuff. And I'm somebody who has to finish a book I start. It's really hard for me not to finish, but this year, if I don't like a book, I'm just not finishing it.
I was actually surprised at the number of books that I thought were going to be fantastic, and then I was disappointed by, and the books that I was like, okay, I'll read this one, but then I was like, oh, snap, this is a really good book.
It's always a nice surprise.
Yeah. So what about you guys? Did you guys read any good books this last year that stuck out to you as like amazing that you would recommend to anybody?
The unfair part of that is most of them are books that you recommended to me.
That's right.
Ruocchio, I'll probably say his name wrong. I'm reading the second book in that series, in the Sun Eater series, which is amazing. And I read Heat 2.
Oh, I recommended that one to you too.
That was one of my favorites. I read the first Orphan Wars X, which was good, but Heat 2 I thought was amazing. And it made me want to like be a better writer and just be a writer in general, because it was awesome.
I really liked Heat 2 because of I really felt like this is going to be like sound contrived or whatever, but I felt like I was in the movie with the movie characters from the first one, right? The way, of course, the first one was just a movie, and Michael Mann is predominantly a screenwriter, and so the book kind of reads like a script. And it's very fast paced, and even the present tense and all that stuff, but it's very noir-esque. And like Scott mentioned, I can't remember what exactly you said about it, but he was like, they were driving on a street or something, and you were like, this thing that he said, like he repeated, like that he loves this phrase or whatever, and I can't remember exactly what you said. But Heat 2 is a really good book too.
The only thing about that, it's nothing new with writing. There was one scene in there that I could pull from like work experience that really gave me some chills when they were trying to stop the robber in Chicago, the home invasion.
Oh, right.
We're trying to get there before he got to that family, and they snuck in the back door and were waiting for him.
Yep.
That was very intense for lots of reasons. But anyway.
Bagpiper Dan says, as in Heat, the epic length movie. So yes, Heat 2 is Heat, the movie with Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer. this book, Heat 2, is a prequel and a sequel to the movie at the same time. There are two separate timelines that happen during the book. One of those timelines is set before the events in the movie, and then one of the timelines is set, basically it starts right after the movie finishes. So with Chris Shaharless and the aftermath of the bank robbery and all of that stuff. So yeah,
it's very tight, lean, Elmore-esque type writing where they don't explain a lot of crap to you, but you just know. And they can use incomplete sentences and all that stuff like we talk about, but it is done really well.
Yeah. What about you, Kalene? Did you read any books?
Did I read any books?
Well, that you didn't edit.
So
that you read for fun.
That's the thing. Like through maybe the first half of the year, I really wasn't reading very much beyond my editing because I was so tired. Like literally from 6:30, 7:30 in the morning until midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm editing. I might have a few hours in between there, and I make sure each night to spend time, specifically just with my daughter so she doesn't feel abandoned and alone. But other than that, I'm right here editing. But anyway, books though, I have developed a problem because I really want to read more for fun. So we've been going to the bookstores, and I'll get a book, and I'm really excited to read it. I'll read maybe the first half or first chapter, and then that's it. They're on my shelf. I've got several of them now. Just waiting for me to continue reading, and I have
a lot of my paperbacks are like that.
But it's nothing against the writing, because I'm really picky about what I read for fun. Exactly for the reasons that you were saying earlier with, reading, because the style lended itself to your writing. And then, what was being written about was good fodder for your mind for writing beyond, which I think, sideline, is really good advice to authors. Yes, reading bad work can help point out things not to do, but you start internalizing those tones and those flows, and then you start finding that your writing is mimicking it. So,
I think that is that advice to look for the bad writing is okay, but I think you can do too much. I think you don't need a lot of bad writing to learn the lessons from it.
Yeah, definitely swap in some good stuff in there, especially the stuff where you're I want to write like that. Then you can start internalizing what they mention, when they mention, how they mention it, and then turn that into your own words. That's
what I really like is I'll go to a movie that is not really a movie in the genre I normally prefer, but the story is so good I leave wanting to go home and write. And to me, that's a true test of the writing, because it's not something I went there intentionally to see. Somebody go with my wife or the kids or something, and when you're done, you're like, gosh dang, I just got to write right now. I'm so inspired. Those are good.
It's interesting because you mentioned reading the bad books. I'm reading The Lions of Lucerne right now by Brad Thor. It was his first, I believe it was his first published novel. I think it came out about 20 years ago. I'm not exactly sure on the date. But Brad Thor is an awesome writer, and obviously he's maintained a best-selling career over that time. But it's interesting that you go back and read his first book. The writing is fantastic from a reading perspective, from the words, the structure, all of that. But he does things in this first book, I think because it is his first book, also because it was written 20 years ago, that by modern day standards are not mistakes. I don't know if mistakes is the right word. For instance, he head hops a lot.
You were talking
there's no scene breaks. He's just one paragraph he's in one person's head, the very next paragraph he's in another person's head, and it bounces back and forth. There's some There's some structural, some mechanical issues where he is having somebody tell somebody something else that already happened, and it's just a whole lot of like kind of almost a repeat, like a rehash of events.
Redundant.
And redundant. It's redundant, but not it's redundant to the reader, not to the characters that are being involved. And I'll be interested to see, going through the series and getting to his newer books, at what point that stuff got ironed out, right? Like, because most of the stuff that I have read over the last 5 years have been published in the last 5 years. I don't read classics. Yeah,
that's interesting because I had I always say his name wrong, the Baladucci.
Yeah, David Baldacci, or is that right?
Yeah,
something.
Baldacci sounds better.
Yeah.
But I read the first book. My first book I read with him, I thought I was going to claw my own eyes out. But yet, obviously, millions and millions of people thought it was fantastic, and I was like, I cannot believe this. But I think that you could kind of track the progression. I wonder if they change with the times.
Yeah. Bagpiper Dan says, anybody reading Jack Carr? I have read the first 2 Jack Carr books, and I stopped reading the third one. I am actually probably one of the only people that will say the TV show of The Terminal List was much better than the book. The books were good. The first book was extremely simple. It was well written, but it was simple. The plot was there. The second book was okay. But the first half of the book takes place in Africa, which is not a spoiler. It takes place in Africa and really has no bearing on the rest of the book. It's like he took like 2 different ideas that he wanted to be like on a safari someplace doing something, and just threw that in the beginning of the book, where he could have, like, yes, the dude's he's hiding out in Africa, but the whole like 40%, 45% of that section of the book could have been like shrunk down to like 2 or 3 chapters. And it would not have, it would have affected the book in that it would have been substantially shorter. But as far as the actual plot, the point of the book, it had absolutely no impact on. I started reading the third book and just put it down. I can't remember who said it. It's a friend of ours that said it. We were talking about it, but it almost becomes like and this is going to sound like worse than it is, almost kill porn. In a sense that,
yeah, that didn't sound bad at all.
Yeah. I don't take that the way I meant it.
It's the one-man killing machine genre.
Well, yes, but he had like this. He had this whole sequence at the beginning where this girl gets killed. I can't remember if it was by a bear or a pack of dogs. I think it was a pack of dogs. Really graphic, really brutal. And like, I get it. Like, I do some crazy stuff too. Like, I'll slit a guy's face off with a knife or a spear or something like that. But it just seemed a little
lavish in it.
Yes, that's right. So I don't know. I think that Jack Carr and Rick's right. The Jack, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but the first book, The Terminal List, was by Scott. The first book was written by Jack Carr is a pen name, and the first book was written by I can't remember the actual guy's name, George, I think, and another guy. And then after book 1, it was just Jack, or the pen name of whoever, I can't remember his name. But yeah, I think firmly that he is one of those authors that is he's a decent writer. He's a good writer, but I think his career blossomed and became a thing because of who he was and the connections that he had, and not necessarily on the merits of the books themselves, if that makes sense. We've all seen, authors that write terrible books and they make billions of dollars. I mean, what's that woman erotic book that made $1 billion? The 50 Shades of Grey. Like, that book made $1 bazillion, And I tried to read it not for the content. I tried to read it to see why is this book making $1 billion, and it was the worst written book I've ever read in my life. E.L. James. There you go. Thank you, Rachel.
Now, so Jack Carr
You're quiet again, Scott. I can barely hear you.
Jack Carr was actually a Navy SEAL. That's why his first books were mostly ghost written. Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, so I was saying that Jack Carr is a pen name for George something. I can't remember his actual name. And the first book was written by George and another guy. It was co-written. And then the second books were written by quote unquote Jack. But I think, with his connections in the SEAL community, his connections, like, he knew Brad Thor's agent. He got really in good with them. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast. He went on Jocko's podcast. Like all of these media outlets that reach millions, literally millions of people every episode, catapulted him into this place. And I'm not saying the guy's a bad guy. I'm not saying the writing is horrible. It's pretty good writing. But honestly, I think it's one of those things where you have the platform, your book is successful, regardless of the content.
Right. And like I said, I'm not knocking it either, but it just, when somebody said that it was the first ones were ghost written, it was like, that doesn't make any sense. Normally it's the James Patterson thing where he writes a bunch of books and then by the end they're all ghost written.
Rick said the name is George Peterson, I guess. Is Jack Carr.
In the case of Tom Clancy, is you die and half your fan base doesn't realize you passed away because there's still books coming out.
Right. Well, Tom Clancy has kind of turned into a franchise. The name itself is a franchise. Piper Dan asked about the TV show, since we're still talking about it. The TV show is phenomenal. The first season was great. Like I said, I thought it was better than the book. It did had a lot of different, like with any show. Hold on a second. I got to yell at my dog.
I haven't finished the terminal list. I need to put that on my to be finished show stuff.
Sorry about that.
Finish reading a book.
Right. I tried to read the book last night and fell asleep. Most of mine are audiobooks, seems like.
I started to think, what am I doing? What did I do? What am I doing? What did I do intentionally?
Creating awkward pauses where me and Scott try and fill in the silence because you're yelling at your rat.
Sorry about that.
You're like, well, I wish I had a rat like that.
Well, the dog's name is Brownie, and we named her Brownie because she was, like, when we got her, completely brown. Like, but then now she's more of a cream color, and she knows her name is Brownie now. So it's
creamy.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. That's another show. I forgot what I was talking about then that I had to yell at the dog. I'm not colorblind, Rachel. The dog was brown first, and now it chose not to be brown. Whatever. I don't know. So the show, like with a lot of books into TV shows or books into movies, the show held to the plot of the books or of the first book. But they did different things. They did things that were different. I think that they did a really good job showing the main character, like the character's name is James Reese. There we go. They did a lot better job showing Reese's condition and history and building up his family dynamic and making that aspect of the book hit deeper than in the books, because in the show they really expanded on his family, and in the books you really didn't meet them at all. It's I think if you're going to use an incident as a catalyst to push the character to do something, I try to do this without spoilers because I don't want to spoil it. So I'm trying to word this in a way that will make sense. If you're using an event to catapult a character into action, the reader also has to sympathize. They have to empathize with that event and basically get the same emotional response that the character is getting. And if you're not building up the background for that event to hit home for the reader, because obviously the character has a connection, but if you're not building that connection for the reader isn't going to feel it, and they're not going to be as emotionally attached to the book as they could be. And in this instance, the TV show did that way better than the books. But I could harp on this all day long. I'm monopolizing my own show.
I haven't finished it yet.
You know what? The book, you mean, or the show?
The show.
Well, I'll definitely finish the show. You know what?
There's so many I haven't. No, like I said, I can't wait to do it.
I think you could probably skip the books. Out of all the books that I've read this year, I would not recommend. Not recommend the Jack Carr books. Out of all the other ones I read,
I've been wanting to read more thrillers because I really enjoy them, and I want to write one eventually. And I saw basically I'm going to do all the Gray Man books and the Orphan X books, and then we'll just go from there. Maybe get some of the old Tom Clancy books I used to read.
I'm doing a reread of the Tom Clancy series now. I just started Patriot Games, and I just watched it recently too. And it's interesting the difference, how well they held to the material, but also how much they cut out. I mean, Tom Clancy books are tomes anyway, right? So they're like 900,000 pages long, and most of them are like schematics for some weapon system that nobody is ever going to see. So it's funny. I think I'm like 20% in the book, and Jack's still in the hospital. And in the movie, he spent like 5 minutes in the hospital. Yeah. Rick says the movie is better than the book. It's been a long time since I've read the book, but I remember reading it and remember seeing the movie and remember liking the movie better. But the book is still not bad.
Yeah. Patriot Games was actually one of the movies that was pretty good. There were some other Tom Clancy movies that were somewhat disappointing, I thought.
Yeah. The newer stuff
came into one movie.
Yeah, the newer stuff, like with the series is okay.
The Gray Man movie was ridiculous.
The Gray Man movie. So, real quick, the Bagpiper Dawn. There's a movie made of the Gray Man series, and the movie took elements from multiple books and smashed them together into the movie. So, in a very true sense, the Gray Man movie is nothing like the Gray Man books, because they basically just took the characters and used that as kind of like the new Jack Ryan series. It's not really Jack Ryan from the Tom Clancy books. They're just using the name and the IP to sell the series, which, whatever. I mean, I'm okay with that. But I go into that series watching it, but not watching it as a Clancy. Like, I'm just like, okay, it's going to be a neat like thriller series, but it's not really Jack Ryan. The Gray Man movie though was pretty, like, it was over the top. If the Terminalist show was better than the book, this movie was not better than the Gray Man.
Well, and it's one of those ones where it's just the complete disregard for physics and bullet wounds and many things made it just kind of farcical. On that note, one that surprised me that I did watch was Bullet Train. I thought that was going to be more of the same and really just kind of a bunch of goofy shit, but it was really good. Actually, the story sucked shit. Even my wife watched it, although she had to look away from some of the exploding body.
Was that the Brad Pitt one?
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely worth a watch.
I've been putting that off.
I don't know why. I'd move it up the list a little bit.
Really?
It just looks so like comically weird. And I'm
I thought the same thing.
Comically weird trying to be serious, and I'm like, what?
But the thing is that it actually hits all of its like your doors or your act structure, your turning points, everything's in a really good place, and it makes you want to find out what's happening, even though it's pretty obvious that it's a lot of people on a train dying. But it's actually way better written than I expected, and it's very enjoyable.
Interesting.
I have to give it a shot then.
And there's just and some of the visual effects and stuff are just hilariously good, and artsy, which I always like.
Jay says the best horror movie of the year was Pearl. I'm not a huge horror guy.
You haven't seen it.
I have not seen. I'm trying to think of the last horror
movie. I'm going to have to write down Pearl, because if Willow hears that I knew of a horror movie that I didn't tell her about, she'll
you'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
Bagpiper Don mentioned to Jack Reaper. I don't know. I don't recognize this name. So if you've changed your YouTube name from something else, I'm sorry. I don't recognize this name from last season. But welcome. because we're getting a lot of topic information from you. I appreciate that. The Jack Reacher books versus movies versus TV show. Cruise was too short. TV show too angry. So I haven't read any of the Jack Reacher books. I liked the movies. The Tom Cruise. Well, the first one. I thought I enjoyed the first one. Second one was okay, I guess. The TV show was phenomenal. I really enjoyed the TV show. I liked the fact that he was violent and unapologetic about it. Like the scene in the jail cell where the convicts come in and they're trying to bully the other guy, and he basically starts counting to 3 but doesn't get to 3 and just kicks their asses anyway. Like, that set the scene for me. Like, this guy will use violence when it's needed and doesn't apologize for it. And I think a lot of times we'll see that in movies where like you're wanting the main character to like beat this guy's ass because he deserves it, and the main character gets this moral like high horse. I'm not gonna do that because of this reason. No, man, punch him in the face. He needs a face punched.
We watched 3 Pines, and then my wife read one of the books by that author. It's a series, and it wasn't bad. I actually kind of enjoyed it, and sad that they're not going to do a second one just for the storytelling elements. But it's written by a Canadian author, and the main the inspector doesn't carry a gun. And there's multiple scenes in there where like they come in and this guy is kind of suicidal and he's shooting around. He's shooting off the top of this hotel with a shotgun, and they come around the corner and he points it right in their face, and he's just been shooting. And I'm like, why are they talking to that guy? Because in real life they'd be dead.
Right.
And so that was like, but yeah, so we're just talking about, too much killing versus not. I mean, but it was just an interesting dynamic. It's like in the movies where it's like where the negotiator surrenders himself as a hostage to talk to the bank robbers. Like, that doesn't happen in real life.
Right.
It's just dumb.
Right. One of the things that, like we do, like we write most sci-fi predominantly, and Kalene edits a lot of it. And one of the things that we all obviously try to get right is like the military tactics, the lingo, the dialogue, and stuff like that. I was in the military, but I was definitely not a special operator. And there's definitely a tempo and a pace to that, and it's interesting to see. It's interesting to read when it's done well and when it's not done well. And I mentioned the Lions of Lucerne, and there's a sequence in there where the SEAL team is going to basically rescue the president, or where they think the president at. And it is 100% clear to me that Brad Thor did absolutely no research when he was talking about when he was working on the dialogue for those sequences, because it was horrendous. Like, even the code names that a lot of people don't know this, but most military code names are random. They're randomly generated. There's no context to them at all. They're randomly generated. Same thing with pilot call signs. Everybody wants to come up with a cool pilot call sign, but almost all call signs in the military are not picked by the pilot. They're assigned by the pilot's peers, and usually it's like a knock.
Yep.
Like, usually the pilot did something and they're like, we're calling this guy spilt coffee, and that's your call sign, and you don't have a choice.
Yeah, we got one. Her name is Giggles, and that's what they call her. She is Giggles because she laughs too much. So
yeah. Rick says a pirate call sign would be pretty cool.
Would be good.
I'm down with that. Yeah, man. I feel like we really dropped back into the program here, and kind of, it's like riding a bike, only not falling off.
I hope not. These seats are pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
There wasn't nearly as much angry complaining about AI generators and stuff as I anticipated. Filling.
We're gonna need to do a show about that, I think, because it's a big topic in the industry right now. We've talked about it in our writers group last meeting, and it's a thing. And I don't think that it's I don't have this big, huge doom and gloom thing about it. I don't think that it's going to take over the industry. I don't think that people are going to be generating AI books en masse and like pushing authors out of business.
The big problem with is, besides, I think people are looking for an easy way to make a quick buck, is that, okay, what happened? You know, it used to be like with math. Everybody had to know how to do math.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had to
because you're never going to carry a calculator around all day long.
Now you literally can just say, "Hey Google," and they'll just tell you what the answer is.
Right.
And you know what? I think probably as a society, I bet you that our math proficiency has decreased a lot. Well, people I saw today were going on about, well, I just use it for like to get some story ideas or to check my blurb. I'm like, don't do any of that. Use your brain. Work that thing.
I've used it I've used it a few times, just kind of testing out the capabilities of and we're talking about ChatGPT. If you're wondering, you can Google it and find it's basically a big AI program where you can type questions and queries and even put in blurbs and get feedback or get back like different types of verbs or blurbs that'll help you kind of work that stuff out. I've used it a couple of times testing, looking at like, can you give me examples of like science fiction futuristic ores, like metal ores or alloys? And it does that. It'll generate like
a name generator or something.
Yeah. And it'll give a little description of what it is. I asked it to generate futuristic science fiction weapons and their designations. And this is where I found the first limitation, and where it butts up against creativity, in that it generated like some crazy names, like some B movie names, like Pulse Ray or something like that, right? But the designation that it gave, like all of the weapons were two names, and so the designation that it gave were like you have an M4, right? Or you have like an M9 or a Glock 29 or whatever it is. You have a designation for the type of weapon. The designation that it gave for this, hold on a second.
Such a cliffhanger.
Sorry. Now I have the dog and the kid. So the designation that it gave for the weapons would take the first letter of each word, put it together, and then go 0, 1. And then as it went down, it gave me 8 suggestions, and as it went down the list, it just took the first letter of each word in the weapon name and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numerically down the list. There was no like creativity of like an RPM 97 or whatever it is, right? And so that struck me as kind of a really not a bad limitation, but it's one of those things where if you're going to use the AI as a tool to feed a little bit of creativity or help you get past a thing or do something like that, it's definitely not foolproof, and you're still going to have to be like creative on top of it. Like it's not going to write you the next Game of Thrones.
Most larger writers that I know that have ever worked with ghostwriters, is a lot of them complain that it's more work than it's worth because you wind up having to rewrite the whole thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think an AI is going to create anything that you're not going to have to rewrite anyway, you're wasting a lot of time. Then you just should skip it. And then my other part of that rant is music. Music is much less connected to me because nowadays technology, if you go into the studio and you sing off pitch, it'll just fix that shit. Whereas in the 80s and before that, and even most of the 90s, you had to actually be able to sing in pitch. They could only fix it so much. You had to be on time. But now you can just, if you're kind of in the ballpark, it'll just fix everything. It'll rhythm correct, it'll pitch correct, it'll tone correct, it'll do all those things. And what you get is a lot of studio musicians, because a lot of people who don't really put in the time to be good musicians, and you got your live music is in the shitter.
Yeah.
The last 20 years.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kalene.
I was also thinking of all this AI stuff going on, because a lot of people, especially when it was first like, bam, AI is happening, they're worried, it's going to take all the jobs of the writers and stuff. But I started thinking, I'm like, well, I wonder how all the painters and the portrait artists, with, actual colored pencils and markers felt when, and paint actually, when photography first started coming about.
Right.
Back then, that was the AI back in the day, because now they can just have the picture and it's right there, and it doesn't take weeks and weeks to render and paint this portrait that you're having done. But it's still being taught, it's still being done, and people are still paying for, actually hand done portraits or landscapes and things like that. So it will find its place, and we just don't know where that is yet.
The interesting thing about your analogy that just occurred to me, because it's a fantastic analogy, is that yes, cameras replaced the need for replaced the need for artists to draw you a portrait, right? But there are still people that take horrible pictures, and there's still people that can take a picture, put it into Photoshop, make it really look good, but they have to have
Photoshop's a whole other thing too.
Well, but it still takes a little. It still takes that skill, right? It still takes that knowledge base of, I know what I'm doing with lighting and shadow and all this stuff. Rick Partlow takes fantastic nature photos. I go outside with my iPhone and take a picture of a bug on a thing, and I'm like, I'm a genius. And then I look at Rick's Yellowstone pictures and I throw my phone in the trash, and I'm never taking another picture. So like,
there's still a talent that you need, and I'm curious to see what the talent of AI will be, like the talent for photography, the talent for Photoshop. People are taking photos and merging them together, cutting off people's heads, putting them on different bodies, adding wings, changing hair colors, making the neck longer, adding arms. Like, I wonder what that'll be for AI, and I'm curious.
Yeah.
Rick says you can still make phone calls on it. That's true. I can still make phone. I'll take it out of the trash then. I'll keep it. Man, I cannot believe, like with every show of this, the hour just flies by, and I am so glad that we have decided to come back and revive the show, as it were. The Facebook group's still there and has been kicking, and I'm really appreciative of everybody that has hung with us and supporting us, still coming back to hang out and watch the shows. We're going to try to be really back on our schedule, really be on it this year, stay consistent. Like with everything, consistency matters. And really, I miss hanging out with everybody. I miss almost choking on my water when somebody says something, and my dog when she barks. She like that. I click mute really fast so you guys can hear me yell at the dog. Anyway, Kalene, I'm happy to see you back on the air doing well. Scott, I'm glad that you're in a position now where we can do this again and hang out, and I'm, for one, glad to be back and hanging out and seeing everybody in the live chat and just hanging out, man. It's a good break from the monotony of writing. Lou says we're back. Hey, Lou, what's up, man?
Yes.
Long time no see.
That's the rumor.
Yeah, that's the and Josh Giselle's here. He says happy retirement, Scott. What's up, dude? So yeah, we're back. This is where we're at now. We're going to be doing the show hopefully weekly now. Like I said, Christopher Ruocchio is going to come on sometime this month. I'm going to get that nailed down. We're kind of at a later time right now. I think we're going to try to stick with 2:00. We'll just see kind of how the schedule rolls around and if we can stay with that time or if we need to move it around. I believe that Kalene and Lauren are talking about bringing the writer's journey back at some point, and I'm super excited for that.
Probably closer to within February, because we both have things in January that are just, I don't want to be more tired and crazy. So we're just
indeed
February.
100%.
But we are coming back. We are.
Well, everybody in the live chat, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and enduring the hiatus and then coming back and making our first show of 2023 a success. And I appreciate each and every one of you. I haven't said this in a long time. Come back next week because we're going to talk about some reading, some writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Peace.